NVN is a wonderful group of senior citizens here in Northwest Philadelphia. It's part of a nationwide movement called the Village Movement, which is trying to keep seniors active and involved in the community and involved in activities that both help themselves and help each other. And one of their activities here is a lecture series or a talk series on Monday nights as well as other nights of the week. And so tonight is part of that. Myra is on the program committee. I'd love it if you would give us the Zoom protocols for the evening and explain to people how to ask questions at the end, if we would.
The Zoom protocol is just, please keep yourself muted unless you're one of the speakers. And at the end, we'll have questions. Please either put it in the chat or raise your hands and Steve will call on you.
I guess we should say, if you don't want people to see your face in the recording, you can go on, cut out the video part so that we just have your name. A few weeks after the horrendous murder of George Floyd in May of 2020, a friend of mine who'd been a teacher for many years and an activist here in Germantown, where I live, called together a band of folks to share their stories and figure out what could be done next to help heal some of the deep wounds and racial mistrust here in our community. The group included representatives from a number of neighborhood groups and other citizens who were drawn in. And believe it or not, that group continues almost every Wednesday night. We just had our 121st session last Wednesday. And it's through that forum that I met both Joe and Clayton, our speakers tonight, Joe Budd and Clayton Justice. I've come to learn from them how their organization, Men Who Care of Germantown, operates, how it pivots skillfully when conditions change, how it builds trust, how it stands boldly as an advocate for the most disenfranchised people here in Northwest Philadelphia. One result of this Wednesday group has been a month-long summer camp program that they've organized at the Roosevelt School on Washington Lane. And right now we're preparing for its third season. Joe serves as the president of Men Who Care and has a side career in real estate. He tells me, I don't know where he has the time for that because I've seen him put 100% of his time into Men Who Care. Clayton is the eloquent executive director of Men Who Care. He also tells me he's a physical trainer and sometimes is driving back from those appointments when we have meetings, but where he finds time for that, I don't know. So they'll fill you in with any details on or other relevant details from their life that is relevant to their talk tonight. I'm really proud to bring these friends of mine to you as true practitioners of social betterment, community building, and empowerment here in our own neighborhood. Joe and Clayton, please, the Zoom floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Clayton Justice. I am the executive director of Men Who Care of Germantown. I'm a native Germantownian, if I can say that. My family moved to Germantown in 1961. Joe and I have known each other 40 plus years. The members of our organization have known each other for 40 plus years. We grew up together. That's one of the unique things about our organization. Before I get into anything further, just on behalf of myself, Joe Budd, and all of the members of Men Who Care of Germantown, as well as Steve, I want to thank you guys wholeheartedly for hosting us this evening. It's indeed an honor to be on the call with you guys tonight. We are always willing to meet stakeholders in the Germantown community, especially those who want to better the quality of life of the most underserved people in our community. That's a big part of our work, not exclusively, but that's a big part of our work, is ensuring that the most needy residents in Germantown have access and opportunity to equity. And that's from kids in elementary school as well as seniors. I think to truly gain a perspective of who we are and where we started, I think that it will be enlightening for you guys to get a historical perspective of how we even became to be. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for allowing us to be on this call. So Men Who Care started 11 years ago, going on 12 years now. And it just so happened that one of the guys we grew up with, he lived on top of Hopkins Street. I lived on Morton Street, as did Clayton live on top of Hopkins Street. All of the guys in our organization are within a couple of blocks radius of Morton and top of Hopkins. He came home from jail and he called me and he wanted to get together, get the old guys from the neighborhood together. And I kept, pushing him off. I was in the suburbs, in the church, a deacon in the church, and he wanted to get together. I kept saying, no, I don't hang out anymore. I don't do that anymore, blah, blah, blah. He was very persistent. His name was George Waters. He was persistent. He would call me every week, Joe, let's get together. Let's get the guys together. I'm like, no. So one day I said, all right, George, I got a building at Morton and Tappahocken. Let's meet down there and just have a conversation. So I came down one day and George and I was having a conversation in the little office there at Morton and Tappahocken. Out of that conversation, we said, well, why don't we just do something in the community? Instead of hanging out, drinking beers and everything, let's just do something in the community. The first thing we did, we decided to clean a lot on the block we used to hang on, the very corner we used to hang on when we were young coming up. And that corner is Pastorius and Baton Street. Overgrown lot. Right now, they're building like a 4-unit apartment complex there at Pastorius and Baton Street. So we cleaned that lot, and we had some of the young guys who were selling drugs on that same corner help us clean that lot. We cleaned that lot, and from that, we said, what else can we do? And we noticed that some of the seniors in the neighborhood, my mom and a lot of the guys in our organization, mom, said they were fearful of coming out into the neighborhood because things were going on. So we engaged our seniors. We started a share program. And then organically it went into going into the schools with our youth to help mold and shape some of our youth. But I just want to go back a little bit. From George and I meeting, we called some of the other guys that we used to hang out with. We had close to 30 guys come out for the first meeting to do something in the community. Out of that 30 guys, a lot of them fell off because they wasn't sure what we were trying to do. And I'm being 100% honest with you guys, right? A lot of them thought that we were in it to make money and get money out of the community. And when they found out that it wasn't about that, a lot of guys fell off. And we narrowed it down to about 8 or 9 guys. Clayton Justice came, he's the young boy in the crew. So he came on a little later, gave us a little bit of organization and strategic movements to our organization. We were just doing work. Clayton came and said, y'all need to be, a 501c3 and all of those things. All we want to do was help the community. So that's how we got our 501c3 with Clayton's direction. So we have 9 directors now. All guys from that 3-block radius. We all grew up in the neighborhood. He said 40 years. It's really 50 because he's the young boy. He said 40. But a lot of us, I'm 65, and a lot of our guys, I know George and I have been knowing each other for 50 plus years. But our passion for the community has shined through, and that is why the commitment is so strong. A matter of fact, the resource center that we started doing things out of used to be the bar we used to hang out in on Morton and Tappahocken. If there's any longtime Germantown residents on the call, that bar was called Dick's Den, then it was Fergie's, then it was Simi's Bar. They closed it down because it was a nuisance bar. I bought the building. We transformed that building into a resource center where our young people can come after school and do work. When COVID hit, we naturally went over to becoming a full-fledged food pantry. And we've been doing food distribution from there for the last 3 years. So it has been a progression of doing work in the community. Now, with gun violence out of control, we had to get involved in our youth. Our motto is catch them before the streets catch them. I don't want to say too much, but I know Clayton has some more to say, but that's a little bit of the background of how we got started. Just a lot of guys from the neighborhood who wanted to give back. Some of us moved out. Some of us still live in the neighborhood. I own several buildings in Germantown, so I'm a stakeholder in Germantown. Matter of fact, I'm in Germantown more than I am where I live. So that is our passion for our schools. All of us went to either Emlyn, Roosevelt, Martin Luther King, and Germantown High School. Those are some of the schools that we're in. Clay, if you want to follow up with something.
Sure. So we have very, very humble beginnings. As a matter of fact, until we received the Targeted Community Reinvestment Grant, that was right before COVID. So that was probably 2018. COVID cut that grant cycle short, and recently in 2021-22, we received funding, the community expansion grant from the city. Prior to that time, all the funds that we raised were based on our own initial fundraising and dues. And, you know, that's a credit to the commitment of our guys, just really wanting to make a difference in the community, because we really don't do it to be compensated. We need the compensation in order to operate and to be able to provide the type of services that we provide, especially to the students in our schools. But this is a love of labor for us. I mean, it's our way of giving back. Me personally, it's part of my legacy. It's how I want to be remembered. And, you know, we strategically, you know, kind of narrowed down, as Joe said at first, before I joined the organization, we didn't really have a linear focus. We narrowed that down to education, recognizing that we really wanted to connect with young people. And we initially adopted Roosevelt was our first school, then Martin Luther King, then Emlyn. Right now, we're in like 5 schools in the Northwest. We have to have a strategic partnership with the Philadelphia School District to our mentorship program, which we created, which is called RealTalk with Men Who Care. This year, we expanded it to a young ladies program. And every Wednesday, Tuesday, and Thursday, we're in a school. And essentially, RealTalk is creating a safe haven, a safe space where young people can freely express themselves and have candid conversations. And we want them to guide those conversations. But also, we do have a curriculum that's rooted in restorative practice, conflict resolution, career aspirations, career development, life skills. We bring in credible messengers. We also bring in workforce development opportunities, internship opportunities. Our main goal is to prepare our young people to begin to have a creative mindset to start planning for their future, even at the elementary school level. We don't want any of our kids, especially the ones that graduate, to walk through those high school doors not knowing, you know, or finding their passion and what direction that they want to go into. And so that's kind of like the essence and the heart of who we are from an educational perspective. But our main focus overall is to really uplift families. We created a program called the Family First Initiative, understanding that when families are stronger, when they're viable, when they have the resources that they need, their kids thrive better in schools. And so ultimately, we want to connect the dots between family, community, and schools to ensure that our kids have every opportunity, every access, whatever equity that we can provide to them, so that they're successful citizens and stewards of our community. And one of the things that we really love and enjoy is meeting folks like you, people that are interested in the work that we do, people that could be interested in collaborating with us and finding ways to make our community a better place for everyone that inhabits it. Right now, I'm quite you guys are well aware of the gentrification that's going on in the community, and some people may get displaced. You know, we want to find ways that people who want to stay can stay. Germantown, as you guys know, is an aging community. It's a unique thing about Germantown that gentrification doesn't really impact, because we have more homeowners in Germantown than renters. And so we're in a lot of different buckets, if you will, but primarily our focus is young people in education. We have a college scholarship initiative where every year we provide at least 10 to 15 scholarships to kids that are seeking to go to higher learning institutions, because we recognize that it's hard enough for our kids to get there, but not to have the basic needs while they're there is sometimes why they don't survive. And that's a program that we've been successfully running now for about going on probably the 6th or the 5th or the 6th year. I think probably the 5th, because COVID interrupted it 1 year. So we lead with integrity. We're guides of the community. We're a boots on the ground operation. We are a very humble group, but we've done a lot, and there's a lot of things that we have done that we're proud of. And so again, any stakeholders, organizations, individuals that want to lock arm with us and support what we're doing, we welcome it. And yeah, that's pretty much who we are. Joe, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, one of our major accomplishments, Steve already touched on it. How many weeks did we meet, Steve, for the ARCS group?
Well, we had our 121st meeting last Wednesday.
120 something meetings every single Wednesday, held together with Joanne Sievers, right? She has been instrumental in this also, and ARCS is growing in our schools. Our summer camp is strong. So if I might, Steve, maybe I can go into the video now, and then we can go back.
Explain a little bit more about the summer camp and how it evolved and what its purposes are. And then I think the video will really be wonderful.
I'll go there. So as Steve mentioned, like lots of times when concerned citizens want to make a difference and want to do something, and unfortunately, it's always out of some horrific crisis. And Steve is absolutely correct. It was, the whole thing that rocked the world, so to speak. I mean, George Floyd, that atrocity that happened was felt, nationally and internationally. And so, Joanne, I mean, she's the glue to all of us. I mean, she deserves all the credit because she bugged Joe and I to death, bugged Steve to death, and finally got us on a Zoom call. And we
should add that Joanne should be an NVN, but she's too busy. She's only 92 years old. So she's a model for all of us.
She is. And so through those meetings, we decided that we would do this summer camp, but not just any summer camp. It had to be a special camp. So our camp is called ARCS, Associated Resources for Community Schools for Social Justice and Peace. And it's from an African-centered perspective because we really want to introduce our young people and connect them to their ancestors. It's project-based learning. So even though they do have classroom lessons, if you will, it's from a project-based learning perspective, meaning that they learn how to do things creatively versus, lessons and, how it's done strictly academically. They go on field trips. They get to learn alternative sports. They get to learn what it is to do peaceful protesting and demonstrating on the social justice piece. And it's 4 to 5 weeks of fun, enjoyment, reconnecting with their ancestry, having a blast. And it's the brain trust of, I don't know how many meetings we had to do to come up with what the concepts were going to be. And finally, we decided that we were going to do it. And this is going on the 3rd year that we're having this camp. And it's a phenomenal experience. It's wonderful. We would love to welcome you guys to come up and visit the camp this summer. But we do have a video that kind of highlights, what the camp looks like to show what kind of elements are there. And so with that, roll it, Joe.
Our purpose of our camp here at Roosevelt Middle School is to engage our young people where they are during the summer. First week, we had a fun week where we invited the family and the young people in so that we can build relationships with our young people and their families. We had some interactive activities like alternative sports. We had someone come in to teach the girls and the boys lacrosse.
How do you want to do this?
That was good. Look like they enjoyed it.
So great.
I see your beauty. I see your beauty. I feel your feeling. I feel your feeling. My wisdom comes from a higher source. This almost didn't happen because we didn't have a place to have a camp. We turned to Councilwoman Cindy Bass. I like what you're doing. We want to help you out. So with that, I would like to give her a round of applause.
We had a theme for the camp. We wanted it to be fun for the kids, but also have some curriculum, some project-based learning.
And every time I hear my irregular heartbeat, I think to myself, when the last time I hugged a grown man like a newborn child? Probably the same time he got new braces, 10 seconds before he got in that cop car. Yes, my friend.
Actually,
All of this is for you. So I want to officially welcome everyone here.
We also wanted to be Afro-centered because we wanted our kids to reconnect with their heritage. Kids got to get involved in some interactive drum sessions. They got to learn a lot about our history.
Question. Was he trying to be accepted or was he trying to be respected?
He was trying to be respected.
You see the difference when you're trying to be respected? They didn't say nothing. You know why they didn't say nothing?
Because they respected him.
Thank you. And so when you want people to respect you, if you do the right thing, people will respect you.
We got to get to know kids because, as you know, COVID hit and we didn't touch kids for about almost 2 years. And so we lost a lot of traction with the relationships that we were building with kids.
So the main goal was to build those relationships, and I believe that happened over the 4-week period that we had our camp.
All in all, it was very successful, and we're very proud of what we accomplished.
Nice. Tell a little bit about the plans for this year's camp, which is bigger and better funded and better organized than in the past.
The one thing about organizing a camp is that there are a lot of moving parts. And one of the things that we did both years was not allowing us enough time to prepare for those things that happen that you don't think about. And so this year we started out really, really early. One of the learning lessons that we learned last year coming out of COVID was that a lot of camps were seeking some of the same facilitators that we were. And our price margin wasn't market competitive. So we lost a lot of really, really good facilitators. So this year, after the camp last year, after we debriefed, we decided that we needed to be, market competitive, and also to ensure that we got the very, very, very best facilitators that we could for our kids, not only creative people, but people that have passion for kids, people that bring a certain skill set that are going to enhance that camp for that week. So this year we started out really, really early. We have some great leadership in Deidre Thomas and Larsenia Johnson. They're amazing. I think it was down to the last week last year, we didn't have a facilitator. And so we really kind of got out of the gates early this year, didn't really take anything for granted because we knew that things would arise, some things that we could control, some things that we couldn't. And so we have some amazing, when I mean amazing, talented facilitators this year. When we met with them recently 2 weeks ago, they literally blowed us away with their resumes and their skill set and their passion and their vibrancy and their commitment and kind of getting where we are in terms of what type of environment that we want to create for our kids. Because our goal is to attract the same kids in the schools where we do our mentorship program, so that we can stay connected with them over the summer. I mean, one of the things, and my guys might have saw that in the piece, was we did lose a lot of traction with our kids during COVID. And it was a small mountain to climb to reconnect with them, because some of them, we lost. And so this camp is really a conduit for us to stay connected with our kids, but at the same time too, try to find a creative way to bring parents and community to that space so that we can continue to build that relationship throughout the year. As I stated earlier, our overarching goal is to have community, parents, and schools all be on the same page about understanding how critically important it is for us to lift up those entire families, especially those who come from the most financially challenged backgrounds, that are most deserving, that are residents in our community. One of the things that's very unique about Germantown is that we have this incredible wealth gap where, there is enough money here for every member of our community to thrive. And I think that, that's not our main focus, but we do want to tap into those processes where, those who want to help, have the means to help, can meet with us and figure out how we can work together. One of the blessings for running a camp that we was able to absorb this year was a $25,000 donation from Germantown Meeting House, which was enormous for us because, we're operating, to be honest with you, on a shoestring budget. And again, a lot of the funding that we have for all of our programs, we do it from the muscle. I mean, we've been lucky and blessed because we've been very diligent and true to what we do. But for the most part, it's of our own efforts, and it's from our friends. It's from my clients, Joe's clients. It's from, faith-based organizations. It's the Joanne Sievers and the Steves that believe in what we do and support us. So we're going to ensure that this camp is going to survive, is going to thrive, it's going to get bigger and better every year. And we hope to build it out of capacity to where that we can, have enough capacity to host, maybe 50 kids. Like right now, our cap is 35 to 40, probably stretching it to 45. And a big part of the success of everything that Men Who Care does is really predicated on volunteerism. So we look at time, talent, and treasure. That's how we've survived these years, very humbly, but they're very faithful servants, not only to the community, but also ensuring that our kids have every opportunity to succeed. Joe, want to add anything else? I think it would be a perfect opportunity to open it up for some questions, some Q&A.
Only one thing I want to add. I want to make it clear that, we do this camp and we do our mentoring in the schools. One of our main focuses is those youth that have been so-called thrown aside. When we go into schools, we tell the principal, we want the ones, before you 21 them out to school, we want the most aggressive young men that you have in there before they become a part of the system. We want to make sure that we're giving them every opportunity to thrive and change some mindsets, because we want to prevent them from going to jail or to the grave. And that's why we say catch them before the streets catch them, because the lure of the streets is very, very strong. And our young men have been answering the call. That's why you have the violence you have in the community now. If we can catch them before the streets catch them, we can curtail some of that violence that's going on in our streets, prevent a young man or a young lady from picking up a gun or drugs or anything of that nature, changing mindsets at a young age. That is why we're in elementary schools, middle schools, and the high school. So if we get them in elementary schools, there's more of a chance of us getting the parents at that time. By the time they get to high school, the parents have already thrown their hands up. But not only that, We catch them elementary, middle school. When they come to the high school, Martin Luther King or Roxborough, they will see us there, familiar face. We had young men in Emlyn who was afraid to even come to Roosevelt. So, and young men in Roosevelt afraid to go to Martin Luther King. How do we help them navigate through that without, them just ending up there, not wanting to be there? How do you learn in a system somewhere you don't want to be and you're afraid to be? So that with us being there, it's comforting them for them to see the orange shirts, the orange OGs, they call us. So it is comforting when they see the orange OGs that they've seen from elementary school to middle school, now in high school. And that is why we say, give us the ones that you're going to 21 out of the school. Before you do that, let us work with them. Maybe we can turn them around and change some mindsets. I just wanted to make that very clear. Those are the ones. And in the community, when it's not, the camp we're doing at Roosevelt is not just for Roosevelt students. We had people from the young men and young ladies from the surrounding community that didn't even go to Roosevelt. The goal was to bring them together so that they can socialize. When COVID hit, they sent those young people back to school without even allowing them to socialize. That's why you had so many problems when they went back to school. We met them that summer before they started the school. They got a chance to engage one another, which made it a little easier when they got in school. So I just wanted to throw that out there real quick before we open it up for questions.
You should add, Joe, that OG means old guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's open up to questions. And as we do that, I want to just mention that one of the other partners, she doesn't meet with us every week, is Shantae Love Mason from Emir Healing Center, another wonderful organization here in Germantown that was set up about, I think, 20 years ago to assist victims of street shootings. And they've served thousands of clients, as you can imagine, over the years. And they're being honored the last week of, actually, it's this week on the 26th in Washington, D.C., one of 5 groups as part of what's it called here, National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Their work has really drawn attention through congressmen and so on. So I hope in the future, maybe NVN could ask somebody from Emir Healing Center to come and give a talk and talk about their work, which is much grimmer than the work that Men Who Care of Germantown does. But I'm just really thrilled that they're being honored, and hopefully some money will come of that. They can, their work is amazing too, but I don't want to dilute where we're going here. So one question we had from Hope is, how are the students chosen for camp?
Again, we don't really have, we do have a age restriction, grade restriction. We would like to have kids from the schools that we have a mentorship program, which is primarily 5th graders at the elementary schools and the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders at Roosevelt. But it's kind of like on a first come, first serve basis. I mean, we do have an enrollment closing. So this year, based on our capacity, we'll probably cap out at 45 students. And so the first 45 students that, complete their applications and sign up will be the ones that we'll entertain.
First come, first serve. That's cool. Do you get good cooperation from the public schools? Uh-oh, that's a tricky question.
Do you want I'll just be honest with you guys. It has been an uphill battle couple of years. There was a time where, we were locked out of Roosevelt. There was a principal there. For some reason, we got on the wrong side of him. We really could never figure out how that came to be, but we weren't going to be deterred because those are our families and they were our students. And so with some trepidation, we were able to have a summer camp last year. This year, we had some similar friction with the current principal, but she's come around and we will have the camp there. But in terms of support from the Philadelphia School District, they support any summer program that's in any of their district schools. They will provide breakfast and lunch if we desire to have it. And they also will provide custodial staff as well as a kitchen aid. So that is something that they offer across the board for any summer program. that's in any of the district schools.
But there's a fee, as I remember. It's not a free service.
Yeah, so the camp, if we had to pay out of pocket based on they have a online service, like any community person or any individual who wants to rent a district school, you go into an online service called Facilitron, and basically you choose the school, you choose the spaces in the school that you want, and they'll charge you for it. So for everything that we want at Roosevelt, which is the schoolyard, the gym, the cafeteria, classrooms, and the auditorium, for the 5-week program that we want to run, it totaled up to like $8,000. One of the options, if the principal wants to write it into their budget, they can. That happened last year prior to that. Cindy Bass was able to arrange it through the city's Office of Women and Children because they have access to schools. And so they picked up the bill for us. This year, we're still trying to work with Cindy Bass to see if we don't have to, pay that fee. One of the things that Joe always is very adamant about, and in some cases irate about, is that there should be no way that community organizations should have to pay for public space. And we're going to continue to pursue that endeavor, that community organizations, 501c3 nonprofit organizations should not have to pay for community space, especially if it's a non-for-profit venture that's benefiting people from the community, especially kids. We should not be charged. It should be absorbed either by the school district or whatever agency they're going to designate, whether it comes to the parks and recs or whatever. But the community organizations, especially nonprofits, should not have to pay for community space. So we're still in the process of figuring that out.
Here's a question for Joe. You used the term 21 out of school. One of our listeners wants to know, what does that mean?
It basically means they expel them from the school, and normally they will go to a disciplinary school. So we want to make sure that we catch them before they do. Disciplinary school is like jail. So if we can engage them prior to being put in that part of the system, we want to do that. We want to give that young man or basically we work with the young men in the middle school and elementary schools, the opportunity to change his behavior before they put them in that space.
That would be the equivalent of the youth study center that I don't believe exists anymore. Now that's the place where Steve works, Joe. What is that place called? It's the
Juvenile Justice
Center.
Well, one of the ways to turn that around, and I've been really impressed this winter and spring as we planned this next summer camp, is Joe and Clayton and a lot of other people are putting their thoughts into a code of conduct for the summer camp, which tries to create some alternatives. So if somebody does mess up or if things do get a little out of hand, we've got the staff there to help tamper it down, and that the consequences aren't necessarily punitive, but they may be creative alternatives. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I think it'll play. I mean, there weren't that many problems in the last 2 years with kids messing up. One kid had to be sent home one day, but came back the next day once it was explained what was wrong. So I have faith that this is going to be a great summer camp. One person comments, this is really a comment, but it might also be a question. You can comment on it too. It's incredible that you've persisted through COVID, and it sounds like you're looking forward to a stronger program this year. And I'd love you to mention your experiment with educational pods back in 2021, if you would.
Yeah. That's interesting too, because Joe and I were in two groups. I don't know if they started simultaneously at the same time, but along the same time, one of our really longtime supporter who also serves as our legal person, he kind of helped us, become an entity. His name is Alan Kasnoff, legal advisor. He and another gentleman by the name of Bob Vogel, who was a retired professor at LaSalle University, has a fabulous program called the Writers Matters program. that offers kids an opportunity to voice themselves through literary works. And another gentleman, Ralph Burnley, and another friend of Alan's, they were all Jewish guys, and they wanted to have conversations with 3 Black guys. So it was myself, Ralph Burnley, and Joe. And they wanted to talk about race because they recognized that they had a lot of blind spots, and they really wanted to know what they were. And so we had some really good candid conversations about race. And, you know, the thing about non-Black people is that, you know, when these things happen and they, you know, they kind of go inward and they say, well, I think that I may have some tendencies and some blind spots regarding bigotry. So they became very, very concerned. And so when the school district decided that they were going to have these COVID learning pods and they were going to be shipping people all over the city, we came up with the idea to do a pilot learning pod program at the Germantown Mennonite Church, and that we would host 15 students. And so through their resources and through our relationship with the Germantown Mennonite Church, we found some instructors. And the purpose of the pod was to create a safe space for kids that lived in Germantown, that went to Germantown neighboring schools. So we had kids from Roosevelt and Lingelbach primarily. And they came there every day. And our goal was to ensure that they got online and they stayed online throughout the day and got their lessons done. So we fed them breakfast, we fed them lunch, and we gave them a snack at the end of the day. And it was highly successful. And so we, Menu Care, supported the instructors who were there, basically receiving them in the morning, feeding them breakfast, making sure that they got online, and then they were attentively doing their lessons while they were in school. And it was very successful. And we, you know, did that for the duration while kids were in the learning pods. And then when they went back to school, obviously, you know, we didn't continue with it, but it was a really good experience. And we were happy to be able to offer that alternative to some kids in our neighborhood.
Well, the question also, I think, was relating to the camp. And I know last year you had to stop halfway through the last week because of COVID. What are we going to do this year to make sure that COVID is in control and doesn't damage the schedule and everything?
Unfortunately, we have to do whatever guidelines the school district has in place. Mm-hmm. And that was consistent with what we had to do last year. I think that probably, you know, when you're running an educational program in a school, in a district school, you know, your guidelines have to run parallel to what their recommendations are. And so we can't work outside of those margins.
Okay. This question, anyway, what do you do during this school year? Is there homework assistance and et cetera? I'd love you to also mention your food distribution system on the weekends.
So one of the things that kind of like happened organically during COVID was our relationship with Philadelphia Share. You know, during COVID, obviously, you guys recognized that there was a huge demand for food all over the city. And so coming out of that, Share asked if we wanted to continue our food distribution program, understanding that there are some known and unknown food deserts in Philadelphia, and the Northwest has some sections that qualify for being a food desert. And so we decided that we were going to continue, but the trade-off was our community resource center turned into our food distribution center. And so prior to COVID, we did have a full-fledged after-school program where it was educational enrichment for the first hour, where there was tutoring going on, kids were doing their homework. And then there was a little bit of recreation and some free play, as well as some mentoring going on. And so we're really trying to right now re-space and reallocate the space that we have for the food distribution, so we can get back to having a after-school / summer program, because the kids really miss that. And we recognize that they are hanging around, coming around, and we need to have that safe space for them right there in our community. So yeah, so we're going to hopefully within the next week or so be able to have that community resource center reopen, because it was also a computer lab and open to the community to come and, do resumes, get on the communities to do, web research, as well as hold, small community meetings. And so it also served as that.
Here's a question that relates, I think, to the camp, although maybe through the year, and that is, how have parents gotten involved, if they have?
That's been something that's been an uphill battle. Clearly, during the day, most parents that do work are working during our camp hours. We have engaged them on our fun days, obviously, at the end of camp. That's like one of our biggest challenges, is really trying to find creative ways to draw parents. Joe can talk about this because he had something that went on this last week that was phenomenal, and he came in contact with a lot of parents. So Joe, describe what happened last week.
Which one? What are you talking about, Clay?
We did the food giveaway, and you guys gave away the pretzels and the water ice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, engaging parents is building relationships, and it takes time. They have to learn to trust you and believe that you're there to assist them also. So what we do is different things we do to engage the parents. At Roosevelt, we take food bags up the third Wednesday of every month, grocery bags. We also give out pretzels and water ice to the students and parents when they come up. So we get a chance to engage the parents, have a conversation, let them know what we do. And it is awesome to see the response from these parents. But when you say, can you help out? Do you want to help out? It's a little hesitancy, right? But the more we see them, the more we build those relationships. We believe that is going to pick up. We had a Kwanzaa event at Roosevelt where quite a few parents came out for the Kwanzaa events. So we believe that the more events we have, the more they see us, the more we're visible at the school. We're acting as advocates for them and for the youth to help them when situations arise that maybe because of the strain between the staff at the school and the parents, we can be that conduit or that cushion there to help resolve some of those issues. We had an incident at Roosevelt where a parent was very, very irate because her son was in a fight. I helped break up the fight, and the parent came up. She was really, really upset. She started talking like she was going to do something to somebody. I had a conversation while walking her to her car, trying to calm her down. And she said she lost one son to gun violence. She's not going to lose another son to gun violence. So she's going to protect them at every cost. Understandable, right? You just went through a traumatic experience with your family. Now you hear another son is in a fight. How do you tell a parent how to respond in those situations? We were there to help cushion that because the school automatically, security wanted to X her out of the school, So they took it as an attack on them because she was talking the way she was talking, but it was all venting. So being from the community, we recognized that, helped calm the situation. We met with the young men. I met with both of them outside the school, asked them, was it squashed? We're working on squashing it between the young men. That is still an ongoing thing. But this is where Men Who Care comes in, because we're from the young man walks past our center every day, going home from school. So we get to see him. I get to talk to him to help him to resolve that situation, get to engage his parents. So that is the importance of having community organizations in the school, because we can engage the family outside of the school. But the relationships are growing. We're seeing more parents come. When they have back to school night, you see very few parents come for back to school night in Roosevelt School. Last year, or was that 2 years ago, we were up there giving out flyers. The numbers jumped from like 7 parents to 40 parents. That back to school night that we engaged them outside of the school, but it went back down afterwards, but it did go up because we engaged them, asked them to come out. That is the importance of community organizations being in the school, because they trust us a little more than they trust the school district.
The next question is about the future. or your track record, are the students tracked after they've left your program? And I'm going to include programs because I'd like to do both the summer camp and the RealTalk programs and your graduates that you've helped through scholarships. How do you track those folks and see what the results of your good work has been?
We do track them as best we can. Like, for instance, for our scholarship students, we will continue to provide scholarship funding for them as long as they're in higher education processes. So that can be 4 years, 6 years, 8 years. We have kids that are gone on to graduate school and have opened up their own businesses. Some are working as professionals. They often come back and volunteer and speak to our current scholarship recipients. If we do not stay in contact with them, it's because they've moved on, hopefully, to better things. I mean, you know, young people today, I mean, they change their cell phones a lot. But we do try to stay connected with them as best as we possibly can by, you know, having them still be engaged in the process. Is one of the things that all of our scholarship recipients have to do, is either community service, we would refer to be done in Germantown in our processes, but it's wherever they go. I think that all of our kids in our programs, to Joe's point, I mean, what we do is the essence of building relationships. And for young Black boys, oftentimes they don't really have any positive Black male role models in their life. And once we break those barriers and build that trust, I mean, they really cling to us. You know, Joe has kids that are calling him all the time. You know, most of our guys that interact with our kids on a daily basis, they have the kids' phone numbers. They're in contact with them all the time. We have a group of kids that come to our food giveaway every Saturday, and they're volunteering. And so it's not a very formal process, aside from, you know, ensuring that we have the information that they provide for us, especially the ones that graduate from high school. And, you know, we make sure that we invite them to our processes, especially our events. And one of the testaments of our relationship building is the end of summer, it started in summer and it kind of progressed to fall, September, because there's so many events going on at the same time. We have a community outreach festival where it's for the community. We have live music and entertainment, special guest speakers. We provide food. Everything is free. And we see a lot of our kids that have gone through our programs come back for that. And then we find ways to reconnect with them there and kind of figure out where they are.
Good. We have just a couple more questions and our time is running out. So I want to see if we can cover these quickly. Are you involved with healthcare access issues, helping people apply for Medicaid or other health-related activities?
That is something that we do not directly get involved with. However, we do have a really good relationship with Oak Street Health. And so any health-related issues, we refer them to our contacts there.
I mean, that only works for Medicare and Medicaid folks, but they provided the health services for the summer camps, as I remember. So
correct.
It's cool. Is Philadelphia Share's funding problems, have they been resolved to your knowledge?
I mean, I don't know anything about that specifically, unless you do, Joe, but I mean,
Leonard's asking the question he may know something about that we don't know.
Joe, do you know anything about that?
No, I don't.
Well, this goes back to last winter. They were, the funding got threatened because of, I think, some new state formula or something. But if your relationship continues to be good with them, they must have resolved that.
Yeah, our relationship with them is extremely strong. I mean, they're very, very organized. There is a lot of oversight in terms of, accountability on our part in helping them track the food that goes out to the community. Other than just not having certain things that we would like to provide to the community, like they don't oftentimes have meat products, they don't oftentimes have fresh produce, but for the most part, there hasn't been any interruption in service at all.
Well, the questions keep coming here. What do you know? Do you think this summer your program will be competing with the school district's summer school programs?
It always will. I just think that the difference is they're coming to us and we're different. We offer a completely different flavor. I don't know if any summer program, we've kind of identified with a few, are doing what we're doing. So I think that we're unique in that we do have a captive audience. We do have a built-in audience, even though we would extend it to any kid who wants to come to our camp. But, we would, in our perfect world, we would like the kids to be the kids that we've seen all school year long, to engage them over the summer, to continue to build relationships with them and try to forge relationships with their families.
I'm going to combine these last two questions. One's a comment. You guys are really incredible, so impressive. Do you ever sleep? You're very articulate and dedicated. Have you considered being teachers in high school where Black men are really needed?
Well, we are teachers.
I know you are.
We're just not getting paid to be. No, I think that our guys, we have found our niche. We have found where we can be the biggest impact. And we don't have any restraints on what we can do. I mean, we do have guardrails and guidelines, but for the most part, the thing that allows us to be successful is we're genuine servants of the community, and, kids, and helping kids be successful, bridging those gaps, building that trust, building those relationships, and more importantly, just being there for them. And also, one of the things that we pride ourselves in doing in our relationship building is being able to deliver resources in real time so they don't have to wait for stuff. I think that
speaking of resources, I want to end the questions with my own question, which is, how can people help and support Men Who Care of Germantown?
Well, we have various initiatives that you can donate to. Like I said earlier, it's either, treasure, talent, or time. You can volunteer. You can provide donation if you have a specific talent. If you're a retired educator, you have a passion for kids, and you want to be in our spaces, we welcome you on our website, which is menwhocaregermantown.org. There's a donate button that you can either donate to directly to the Arts Camp, or you can donate to whatever initiative that you may be interested in that is highlighted on our website. But most importantly, we really want stakeholders to, get involved in recognizing that every little bit helps. And, something that kind of stuck with me, Steve, that you said early on about this organization is kind of like a village. And that's who we are. We actually have a coalition called Reviving the Village. So we recognize that it's going to take a village mentality to begin to heal our community and provide the necessary resources that those who are not only deserving, but are less fortunate in our community. We can build this up together.
Well, our hour has come to an end. I want to especially thank Joe and Clayton. I also want to thank Myra and Helene and the others, and Faye from NVN, who helped make all the pieces work here. I urge you all to support Men Who Care of Germantown. It's one of my favorite groups to support here because I see their good work everywhere I go.